Hello, everyone. Let's go over this week's stock report. Yep, we're still in the market, still making money. Going to talk a little bit about the regional bank and the problems they're having. Stanford Graduate School of Business professor presented a grim warning that the regional banking dominoes are falling. Just in the last few months, Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic Bank have failed. Their combined assets surpassed those held by the 25 banks, when you adjust for inflation, that collapsed at the height of the 2008 financial crisis. While some experts and policymakers believe that the resolution of First Republic Bank on Monday indicates the turbulence in the industry is coming to an end, I believe this may be premature. The bank run continues to accelerate. What we're looking at here is withdrawals from these banks. So we're looking at how many deposits they're holding. So you start with this many deposits and they're dropping at accelerating rates. The regional banks have really seen the deposits drop. For a period of time, the drop in the regional and even the drop in some of the large banks, the money went to foreign banks, but recently it's all coming back out of the foreign banks. So all the banks everywhere are having a bank run here. The bank run continues to accelerate, and the government is kind of hiding how bad it really is. During a bank run, when billions of deposits are getting yanked each day, do you seasonally adjust the bank run? Because that's what the Fed did. And here is the deposit data. Seasonally adjusted, 12.5 billion outflow. Actual outflow, 120 billion, 10 times greater. So the seasonal was paying taxes. You think this all went for taxes? I doubt it. You can't really get good data from the government. What are you going to do? In addition, just recently we had a mystery trader put down $5 million on betting that the VIX could hit 70 by September. Now, a VIX spike to go up to 90 would create $400 million in profits. And the way the VIX options work, it clearly doesn't have to go that high before this guy makes a lot of money. If it only hops up into the 35 range, which has happened often, he'll make a lot of money. And each of these options was for around 50 cents each. So he brought a whole lot of cheap options. If you're rich, 5 million on VIX options isn't necessarily gambling. If you had the money to put down 5 million every 6 months, let's say, over time, it would have probably made money. I mean, he probably has an easy way to test out how long after a spike and a bottom of the market would you put VIX options. And he may have a program that's much better than just guessing, I'll guarantee you. So he may not be gambling at all. He may really have a good idea the VIX is going to go up quite a bit. Now, what happens when the VIX goes up? Well, that means we're having a market crash, a pretty good market crash. Okay, now back to our portfolio. First, let's look at all the sectors. In addition to these sectors, I've added the small regional bank. And that's the yellow line where you see their initial crash, bounce. And we continue to have banks fail and come down. Yeah, so big one-day recovery. That's what everybody thinks is the end of the trouble. I don't know about that. So we have a mixed bag in here with the different sectors. Most of them, not many of them actually doing well. What is doing well is portfolio 2. That green line, bright green line comes up here. Pretty smooth, not too bad, and it's making a little bit of money. parts of our portfolio that are in there. Cane, the sugar, it continues to just scream up there. Now, QQQ is not part of our portfolio, and that has been relatively flat here for a little over a month. Then ITB is the home builders, and they have continued to come up a little flat here, but that looks like still good growth. And then short the VIX is the red line. And from here to here, yes, that's coming up. Go along the VIX is this bottom green line that is just hanging in there. So with both long and short, they're somewhat hedged against themselves, makes it look a lot safer than it really is. In reality, if we have a crash coming, we have to sell this short the VIX because it is susceptible to very strange days where if enough people get scared, this can drop way out of proportion to what's going on. And so even though we have a nice portfolio, we will time that rascal to keep out of trouble. Now, gold and silver are doing about the same. Gold's a little better. And the long-term bond is just here for keeping an eye on it. It's not part of our portfolio. So our portfolio, the green line again, we're doing just fine. And the components of it are doing just fine. Here's a look at this portfolio run all the way back to 2018. No problem. A little bit of a wobble, but we came through that okay. And from this to this, well, we were about straight across, but now we're picking up and we're accelerating. You see from that peak in 2022, we've gone up and we're up 14%, while the NASDAQ is still negative 18, almost 19%. So our portfolio just humming along. Long-term test still has us out of the market. Now, I call this our short timer. Well, short's still 17 years from 2006. It's still a buy. One thing that we do is whenever we have a drop, a sudden drop, we recalculate the formula at the start of the drop, and then we wait till after there's a little bit of a recovery and recalculate again. So there's usually minor adjustments to the formula every time there's a big reaction in the market. And as long as you keep in your previous crashes, the overall formula only changes slightly when you recalibrate it. But I did it at the start of this crash, and I've redone it now that we're coming on the improving again. And right this week, each time I did this recalculation and everything, it didn't change the formula. But just this week, it had enough improvement of making a little bit of money here that the artificial intelligence could find a simpler formula going all the way back to 2006 that made tremendous money with very little risk. So it's a lot more legible here because we don't have a gazillion signals. This means we are less likely to be jumping in and out of the market. And we have a lot of history that says we have a really good formula here. And here's a blow up of it. The last time it said get out of the market, right here near the peak of 2022. And we went back in right here when this green line finally crossed below our trigger green line, came back in the market, and we've been there ever since. And as far as the green line goes, it hasn't really come back close to the top. We're still in a good shape, so we're likely to be okay for maybe 2, 3 more weeks at least. We'll keep an eye, but looks like there's no reason to worry right yet. So in your 401ks, the PGOEX, the VIGAX, and the OIEJX are still good choices, and I track COMEX also to keep an eye on if they start to improve, and then I'll throw those commodities back in to the Merlin fund, but not yet. So there's no change. We're in 100%, and this is the portfolio max. It's the portfolio we calculated out, and portfolio one is just 50% cash, and then put each of these percentages in half. So all those that have human interest 401k plans, we're still 100% VIGAX, and Merlin Cyber is 100% PGOEX. Just a short update on our timer since 1/1/2017, where the NASDAQ climbed by 168%. We're up 322% with our timer. And going all the way back to 2006, it's a staggering number. Our timing signals are now 100% buy, and the volatility as measured by the average true range percent is buy. 200-day moving average for the NASDAQ 100 is buy. So we're still in 100%. We look at the individual for the NASDAQ, the S&P, and the Russell 1000. Well, the Russell 1000 is still headed down. The S&P, made a sell last week, and it continues down. And unfortunately, our QQQ, as we look at that, we have to say, you know what, it's turned, and it's actually is headed down now. So we might have 2 or 3 weeks before it signals sell. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. 3 more bank failures and it could trigger sell fairly quickly. So here's the 2 signals put together on the same chart. The 200-day moving average, it's still a buy, but coming down. The average true range percent is a buy and looks like it's okay. The shorter term has turned up. This will turn up sooner or later, but maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks before we're in danger of having a sell signal. Thank you and continued good investing. We'll see you next week.